Welcome to Thank You Five, hosted by Strawdog Theater Company. Thank You Five is a weekly panel discussion on the topic of what is theater, where we bring theater artists from around the globe into conversation about live theater in a digital world with a spirit of gratitude and innovation. My name is Hank Boland. I am an ensemble member here at Strawdog Theater Company. I have been for about 15 years now. Just thank you for tuning in. If you are watching this on YouTube, you could head over to the strawdog.org page and find the Thank You Five page and then join the chat if you'd like to participate, or you can just watch it there on the YouTube. And for now, what I'd like to do is let's meet our panelists. We've got Billy Bullion, Allison Kane, Kara Fromm, and Wendy McLeod. Billy, why don't you lead us with the introductions?
Hi. Thank you, Hank. I'm Billy Bullion. I'm been working in Chicago non-equity theater for longer than I can say here. I think that's most recently I have a little concern I call the Conspirators. We're a small theater company, works in neo-commedia style and does very, very really painful satire. Before that, and concurrently in a little way, I've worked with the Factory Theater, was a member of Aquavit Theater. These are all like small things that I've done around. I acted in a show at Strawdog in the Hugon Hall space. That was very exciting. But mainly I'm just I'm making. I want to make. That's what I do. I'm a director. I make. Thanks.
All right. Awesome. And those are not little things, right? Like those those are not little things that you have done.
I've read some resumes lately that are,
All right, Allison.
Hi, everyone. I'm Allison Kane. I am an actor and I'm also a theater administrator. I've been theater making in this wonderful city of Chicago for over 30 years. I was the managing director of Lifeline Theater for about 12 years. I was also the executive director of the Factory Theater and also the artistic director of Studio 108 way back in the early 90s. I thought I had divorced theater during the pandemic, but I came back. Theater is a jealous bitch, and she brings you back. So I just finished. I just closed a show as an actor, which was actually a wonderful, invigorating, and lovely experience. And I'm also I've now started my own consulting company called Able Strategies, where I am an HR consultant and an operations consultant specializing in not-for-profit arts. And it's a brand new venture that I'm still kind of developing, but I'm having a good time with it.
All right. Thank you. Kara.
Hey, everyone. I'm Kara Fromm. I am a freelance director and sometimes casting director and an educator and a theater maker. I've been in Chicago about 16 years now and I came to Chicago to go to grad school at DePaul, and Chicago bites deep, so I stuck around. And I've worked all over the storefront scene and larger theaters. I've worked with Steep and the Gift Theater and Timeline and Next, may it rest in peace. I worked at Strawdog, one of my all-time favorite pieces that I got to direct, Charles Ives' Take Me Home. Had a lovely life at Hugon Hall, in that Hugon Hall space. And I've been working regionally lately, more now that the pandemic has been with us, at theaters like American Players Theater in Wisconsin and Theater Squared in Arkansas, and I just returned from doing some development on a new play called Cannabis Passover at Chautauqua Theater Company in Western New York, which was a wild and mysterious ride, and thankful to be here with you all tonight.
Thank you for joining us. Yeah, that looked like that last couple of weeks that you spent out there looked amazing. And absolutely, by the way, Charles Ives still Wendy, how are you this evening?
Hi, Hank. I'm good.
Hi.
I am a playwright, so I don't know if I'm a maker. I'm a writer, and I actually I have a long history with Chicago theater, starting with some companies that are now defunct. Immediate Theater was the first company I worked with. I've worked with Strawdog, Goodman, Steppenwolf. I've also had a relationship with Playwrights Horizons in New York. I've dabbled a little bit in film and television, and I have kind of a bunch of new plays that are like planes circling O'Hare because, we had a shutdown for a few years.
That's a modest introduction, and I like that, Wendy. Um, also, like I think the other folks here will represent this. Look into Midway. Right? You want to land that plane, look into Midway. All right. So welcome all. And here's where we start. What is theater? Like it's that open a field, right? No direction beyond that. Allison, do you want to take that?
I guess I'm going to go real simple. It's storytelling to other humans. And that can be unplugged. That can be dressed up in many ways. But pure and simple, it can also just be, in my opinion, around a fire, sharing a story. And so I'm gonna give that the baseline, because I think from there we can all go a lot of different places. But to me, it's the telling of stories to other humans.
All right, Kira.
Yeah, I'm gonna be pretty simple too, but for me, theater's always been an empathy engine, a way to really sort of ignite important conversations that are necessary in the world that we live in today.
Okay, empathy engine. Wendy.
I see writing plays as giving opportunities to actors. That is, I love to sort of have actors embody the stories that I tell, whether it's a comedy or a drama. I think I agree that it's about story, which is more controversial than it sounds. I think there should be a suspense question. I think you should be telling a story in a way that makes a audience sit forward in their seats. And I think there should be some kind of heightening, whether that's in terms of emotional stakes or the use of the design. But it really is about sharing a space together, and that's so important, and you just can't replace that.
All right. Love it. Billy.
I agree with all those things. And Allison, I'm going to disagree with your premise. Plenty of things that are theater that don't tell a story too. But that said, we as practitioners, we know that storytelling is kind of like the one that gets you. But like, may I submit the jukebox musical as not storytelling? But for me, seriously, the theater is a billion things, and I really just concentrate on what it is to me. What it is to me is it's a sacred art form that only exists in the 5 dimensions that it performs in. So there's got to be there's got to be 2 humans in a room. One, either it could be one performing, one and one watching. That's the 2 gathered in theater's name. Hey, yeah, that for me, it's that live something, and I've got something to do with you or for you thing that kind of distills it for me.
And Billy, what you said reminded me of the sort of the baseline of playwriting, which is something that Harold Pinter said, which is 2 people are in a room and a third comes in, what happens, right? That idea of a play begins with a catalyst.
That's the danger of it, right? It's like, I don't know what's going to happen. Whereas film is something that's recorded. I know something, everything's going to be okay because it's recorded, it's in the can.
Right.
Live, I don't know what's going to happen.
I think that's interesting though, Billy. The jukebox musical is not, For me, I agree, but there's also, we're also different humans, right? And so different stories engage us, compel us, excite us, disgust us, scare us, all of those things. And that's also, I think, the beauty of it is that there's many different ways in which we can go about that.
I was kind of being cheeky because, even the most imagistic of theater, you look at Laurie Anderson's work and it's like, there's a story there. Come on. It's just a little impressionistic and we can't say it out. We can't put it in words, but yeah.
Right. I think another way of saying that is that there's a beginning, middle, and end, right? The material is always shaped, whether it's narrative or something else.
Yeah, it's a time art. It's a time art in that way. Yeah.
Right.
Before I go on to my next question, which is like, what is theater in the digital world? I'm going to go to a question that was just asked in the chat area. Billy, this one I'm going to you, but I want to hear everybody's opinion.
I'm looking at
what makes a room a room? When you say two people in a room, what does that mean?
Oh, a room is just, you can define the space that you're in, or you don't have to define the space that you're in. A room can be a park bench. A room can be I'm on an airplane and the pilot's in the airplane. I don't know, I'm riffing here. A room. No. For me, a room is it's a live space. Sorry?
This a room?
No, this is not a room.
Are we in a room?
We're in 5 rooms. Thank you, 5.
That's so why is that different? Think on that. I'm gonna you think on that. Kira, what is theater in the digital world? What is theater during this digital time that we now live in? What does that even mean when you hear that? Or does it make you quail, or does it make you?
It makes me a little itchy, I guess. That's a question that stumps me, honestly. I mean, I think my impulse reaction to that question, which is always the most useful response, right, is I feel like theater in a digital age is self-advocacy. So many of us have experienced that sort of like screen burnout, the sort of, screens are kind of antithetical to what we do as artists, right? Artistry is an analog medium. It requires, the tactile experience oftentimes. So when I say theater in a digital age is a practice of self-advocacy, I mean that you need to be in the rooms that are exciting you, and you need to know what kind of rooms those are. And you need to know how to keep yourself involved in art that is resonating and vibrating within you, and know when it's worth it to, spend an hour, 3 hours, 5 hours in front of a screen, or when, you're not going to be able to contribute anything of value because you're burnt out by the premise of it. So it feels to me that theater in a digital age is about self-advocacy, of really just sort of knowing where your energies are going to be best spent.
Okay. Wendy, what are you thinking?
Well, I'm thinking one of the things that makes the form unique is that the lowest common denominator is the human body, right? Because art can be color and shape, music can be sound, but we build our stories around bodies, right? And so bodies and space is actually intrinsic to the thing itself. And I think we all had a taste of Zoom theater during the pandemic. And at first it was exciting. Oh, I can see this play that's being done in San Francisco or whatever. And then it was like awful. It was so awful. It just wasn't like what theater is supposed to be. And I think we all learned from that. Like, we really missed theater, right?
Yeah, Wendy,
what is it supposed to be?
What were you saying, Billy?
I'm sorry, Hank. I was gonna build on.
Go.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought because I was going to answer your question after that. No, Wendy, can you say what you said? That'll help me.
Lowest common denominator, the human body, Zoom theater.
No, later on, at the end of it.
At first, it was exciting to see plays that we weren't in a city where we weren't, and then we discovered theater on Zoom was bad.
Yeah, then it was
And
terrible.
that's where you snapped.
Yeah.
Just
I learned that 2 weeks ago. Everybody was snapping, so now I know that that's what you do in spots so people can see you snapping.
yes.
Yeah, digital theater was a great thing. It was a good outlet, but it made, yeah, I'm sure it did for you too, Wendy. It made me realize, oh, I missed the real thing. I miss sending my droplets to the people in the front row.
Yeah, and as somebody who writes comedy, it was just death. It was just death trying to do a comedy on Zoom.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
And you can't do music. You can't sing. Like the five of us can't sing a song on Zoom.
Yeah.
That was a problem with something that I was working on.
Mm-hmm.
I was hearing about bands having rehearsal over Zoom.
Yeah.
And yeah, okay, yeah. Like eventually, apparently, you somehow attune your senses to the rhythms and the pauses and the glitches, and that it happens, but like apparently it is such a there's a quite a learning curve to being able to adapt to that, which but the mere fact that it can happen I find fascinating.
So you could have a digital theater company called The Glitches.
Yeah.
The glitchery.
The glitcherati.
Glitches. That's super exciting to me. I think my fatigue and my burnout and my itchiness came from trying to replicate the theater experience over screen is impossible, right?
Yeah.
Or forcing yourself all of a sudden to become a film editor and create short films was like sort of a losing effort because most of us aren't trained to do that. So at best, that's sort of a band-aid effort. But projects that sort of used the unique medium of Zoom and screens, like I'm thinking about those Richard Nelson plays about the Apple family, where he wrote a whole series of plays that took place around this fictitious family having Zoom conversations.
Right.
And a play came out of that experience, and that's using the medium in a sort of authentic way. And that's exciting to me. It's when we try to do what we'd been doing our whole lives on a Zoom screen and expecting that it is going to replicate that old thing is when it, I think it's the sort of the stopgap that makes it incredibly, if you feel like unsuccessful and depleting.
Yeah, Kara, I can't agree with you more. I was participating in something for Northwestern where pieces were specifically written for the Zoom format. And once that lean in was done, then some really interesting stuff happened because we were performing live. And it was to national and international audiences. I think we had maybe 600 people watching, which was just a trip. But because it was written for Zoom and the play used Zoom as the platform, so it was just, that's how people were communicating. It became something really interesting. Was it what we all crave? No, but because of the way it was written and because of the fact that it was live, and anything could happen. We could zip out, we could glitch out, we could do any of that. It did create that sense of that heightened sense in a way. I mean, for me, when Hank, when I knew that question was going to come up, digital theater just sends almost like panic through me because I was running a theater company at the time. So digital theater was, how do we stay relevant? How do we keep our audience engaged? How do we keep our subscribers and our donors still participating with us? And so there was a lot of missteps, I think, in the way that we used it. There were also a lot of good, discoveries that we made. And I think that there was a franticness at that time that was happening where, again, a lot of discoveries were getting made and how it can be used effectively. And, and what that stopgap looked like, and can it continue without having to. So I am happy live theater is back, but I think it can be used effectively sometimes.
Well, it was kind of the heyday of the monologue, because I wrote a couple of pieces for the 24-hour plays where the actors could rehearse it and perform it and film it, in their apartments. And I was teaching during that time. I teach at Kenyon College, and the only way to kind of teach acting classes was to have them do monologues, because it was too risky to have them be on stage, 2 feet apart. So there was a lot of dependency on the monologue, I think.
Yeah, in that piece that I did a 40-minute one-woman monologue, essentially. And people continued watching, which is great.
Yeah.
One thing that the Zoom did for the pandemic is that it enabled us to keep a sense of mission, so that you're doing not something in a different mission, in a different medium, but you can still do what you're there to do. So like, the conspirators, we have a semi-annual Jesus Christ Superstar Do-It-Yourself Messiah complex, which is kind of a close to the Strawdog's old sing-along, but also kind of a curated performance art evening of based around Jesus Christ Superstar, and we do it on Easter. And it turned, live, it turns into this great gigantic celebration of what Easter means to us versus what it means to the church and all that other kind of stuff. It becomes a haven for people who are kind of not welcome at home on Easter. And then digitally, it just, we were able to kind of still have, like, very much like this, have a host, which is me, and then click over to either something live or something pre-recorded, which was kind of cool. And turn it into an evening of celebration. Even though it was digital, we still had the sense of the mission of it, which is to kind of, have that spirit of what is this time of year mean to us? What are the holidays of this time of year mean to us? And then deep in the pandemic, I'm sitting on the set now. We did Billy Billion's Cocktail Hour, which is basically, we believe that the science is true about COVID and you should stay home. So we tried to build a thing that people would just sort of watch and stay home. Don't go out. Stay home and watch this. Here's a little something that feeds, your soul as much as we possibly can without endangering you. So it was kind of cool to say that the mission is still being accomplished for what we do, even though we're barred from doing the basic people in a room thing, which is what theater is.
There was one other pro-pandemic thing, which is actors were available. So, I'm writing a monologue for Elizabeth Marvel. Awesome,
Get equity people for free.
Yeah. But even then, I mean, that I did several readings of new works, and that took some getting used to, right? I'm sure as a playwright it does, and a director, as you're trying to kind of figure that out. But as an actor, getting that timing down and figuring out how to not step on each other, and figure out the nuances of being able to do a reading so that it is giving the writer what they need to continue the development of the script. I found it fascinating. I'm glad we could do it, but it was definitely different than sitting in a room together doing it.
It was also a great opportunity to support our communities and our collaborators and know what sort of topics were, on their minds, and to, have that little window into what that work is. But it felt very, developmental and process oriented, which is exciting. I love process. I think when we turn Zoom into performance, it starts to feel a little, wanting for me.
Yeah.
Right. The one other thing about the monologues is I was being asked to write for actors that I wouldn't normally be asked to write for, Black actors, Filipino actors, because I was tailoring the monologue to whatever actor I was given. And it was really nice to have that intersection.
Neat.
Question, Billy. Question to Billy, only because, Billy, you mentioned sacred art form.
Yeah.
Right? Which is something I always attach to.
Yeah.
And anytime I think of pandemic theater, I think about in my own childhood, growing up in Wisconsin, Sunday morning, all of the 3 or 4 channels that we had would have a church service on it.
Yeah, yeah.
They were generally all Catholic because it was just that part of Wisconsin, but you could have 3 different choices for that. And then after that, there was usually an hour or an hour and a half of live polka music.
God bless the Northwood.
Right? Like, I kid you not. But clearly, those 2 things on your television set on a Sunday morning are nowhere near the same, right? Like that's like to me, that's like the equivalent in many ways of what I saw a lot of with pandemic theater was the equivalent of that. Like, it's not the same as going to church. It's not the same as being in a live place, hearing live music and being able to dance.
Right.
But it's an access to the people who can't do those things. So when you talk about a sacred art form,
yeah,
I want to ask you, is there a way to, okay, I'm going to try to think about how I want to ask you this. The difference between what is sacred and what is a sacrament, right? Because I could watch the church service and have a sacred experience, but I wasn't in church and I wasn't getting any sacraments.
Well, aren't sacraments official? Like they have to be like, this is the thing that we actually have codified and made a thing, as opposed to a ritual. Yeah. Fudged. So the difference between the sacred theater is sacred to me, and I am as subversive as you can get. I'm subversive within my subversive stuff. So iconoclasm, which is another kind of anti-religious thought, is really present in work that I do. So I consider that sacred, right? I consider the ability to smash something sacred. We're a punk rock theater company, which I find so important to the human being, our existence, that little piece that's missing. So then a sacrament, and this may relate to our digital conversation too, is something you're doing in person. You can't do a video. A Catholic video is great because if you don't go to church, then you're a sinner, and make sure you do your novena, you do your things that you're supposed to do, but it's not the what's the transmogrifying, no, transfiguring,
transubstantiation.
Transubstantiate, yeah.
Thank you. The transubstantiation is like, oh, this drink is now the blood. Yeah, thank you. But that's an in-person thing. That's something that happens, and I'm kind of into the shaman idea too. So we in theater do a thing so you don't have to. Thought. So we're doing a holy thing. I'm making a sacrifice. I am suffering. This is another reason I disagree. I am suffering so you don't have to. And clearly that's not the put upon suffering of some theaters have been in trouble for. But I disagree that you don't have to suffer. I think we kind of help ourselves suffer a little bit to make.
Can I ask you to rephrase the question?
Yes.
What is the question, coming from the Jew in the room, not knowing what sacraments even are? What's your question? What about, like, you're listening to church services and how that can be a sacred experience? What's the difference between listening to a church service and having an artistic experience? Is that the question?
A little bit, right? So what I was trying to get towards was this idea of like, and I think Billy did a great job with the idea of like, I can experience the ritualistic aspects of it by watching it. But if I'm there, I'm going to take a physical communion, or I'm going to participate in a physical way that is different, right? So I'm trying to think of an equivalent, but yeah, I mean, I guess it is, for me, the question was really about trying to ask if there is a difference between what happens digitally in theater, which might be very ritualistic in digital theater, and like, hey, lights off, lights up, this is the scene, this is the acting, versus whatever that that thing is, right? That what I think it was last week somebody's talked about that the theater is actually the space between the performance and the art and the audience. That is where they felt that the theater was happening. And does digital allow for that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Or,
I mean, I think so. I think it's personally, I think so. I mean, what is exciting to me as a theater maker, whether I'm in a digital room or an actual room, is the alchemy that happens between the people who are joining me. You just asked earlier in the session, what makes a room? Is this a room that we're in? I would disagree with Billy. I think this is a room. We're all of a sudden having a conversation that's maybe surprising us and producing a conversation that feels suddenly like very meaningful. To me, that's alchemy. To me, that's a worthwhile experience. You can have alchemy in a digital room just as you can have it in a tactile physical room. I just think the forces are sort of against you in digital rooms. When you're in a physical room with people, alchemy is happening every single second you like have eye contact, because that's just what happens when artistic bodies are in the room, like on a unified endeavor, and there are a lot of distractions in a digital room. That's my personal belief.
Could I talk about theater being sacred just without the kind of comparison of digital or non-digital? Because I recently had this experience that reminded me of how sacred theater is. And I'm not given to being pretentious, but I was on this volcanic island in Italy doing a link letter workshop, and the text we were studying was The Tempest. And this kind of in-depth exploration using voice and body, and a lot of the actors were young, like in their 20s, and watching them transform as certain questions were asked of the text or exercises were done. Or I mean, what I told these kind of young people is what you're doing is important, like digging deep into a Shakespeare text is important in a way that maybe, watching a reality TV show is not, right? It's like the truth of the human condition, and beyond the idea of suffering, I just feel like there's some comfort in the idea of recognizing your experience on stage in a fictional context, which is embodied by the actor.
Mhm. That's lovely. That's lovely.
Yeah. I
Kira,
love
for giving me alchemy. That helps my understanding of the digital room better. The alchemy idea. Thank you.
Mhm. Yeah.
Something you just said, Wendy, just reminded me, just hooked back to the thought I was having earlier in responding to like what is theater in a digital age, and this idea of self-advocacy. I'm a company member with About Face Theater. That's my home company. And for me, anytime I work with them on any project, from the smallest in-house reading to a fully realized production, it's a worthwhile experience to me because it feels just endowed with meaning and purpose. And I would read the telephone book with them over Zoom because I know it's going to be a meaningful experience. But that's not always going to be the case, right? Somebody who you might not have any relationship with might say, hey, Hank Boland gave me your name and we're looking for a playwright or a director for this project. And apart from knowing Hank, you don't know this new company. You don't know if they're going to be people who you are easy collaborators with or who do work that is in synchronicity with the kind of work you want to do. So that feels like a little more like a shot in the dark. But yeah, I think if you can work with people who are you share your values either artistically or as a citizen of the world, there can be alchemy in digital media. I think it's always just a matter of like that effort, the energy that we have to put into things. It's a different kind of energy in a Zoom room, right? That's what I've found. And it's you want to make sure it's worth it because you don't want to burn yourself out because we have limited fuel in terms of that, I find, especially lately, personally.
I think that's part of what was so extraordinary about this experience with the Linklater workshop, is that it was people in age from sort of 22 to 65 from Poland, Australia, Italy, Mexico, and then 2.5 weeks just by doing this work together, we created that feeling that I think you find with About Face, right? That this kind of this sense of mission and what was important, and this trust was really something.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting to me, the idea of removing, like, if you think of people in a room, in a physical room, are in kind of in 5 dimensions, right? Time and that unspoken thing, that you take away a dimension and you're in a Zoom room, and it's 2 plus 1. So can you get alchemy over the phone? Okay. Or can you get alchemy on a telegraph? How about sending letters? It's like the more you remove the thing, the harder it becomes to find that connection. But then, what I learned observing in the postmodern theater age was that, yeah, you remove those ability to connect, and suddenly it becomes this mysterious, ooh, look at David Byrne's ideas here. They're very two-dimensional, and I can read whatever I want into them. So in a way, just like a lot of times in theater, we want to let the audience build the story, that we don't want to do all the work. Let them figure out what it is and have an experience. In that same way, making it Zoom, you're kind of engaging people to what if this was in real time and in space with the 4 dimensions in front of me. What if this telephone call, the other person on the other side is wearing an elephant costume? Eliminating some dimensions from the interaction kind of creates more of a mystery.
What do you think? What is theater in a digital age for you, Hank?
Yeah, Hank.
Oh man. Oh,
Good job, Kira.
the hunter has become the hunted. Okay, so
how many conversations about this now?
oh man, well, this is the 4th week in a row that I've hosted, but I've watched almost all the episodes. So I have an amalgamized version of it. But to Kira's point, and a little bit to Wendy's, like when the pandemic happened, I'm an educator. I teach college. I teach at Columbia College, Chicago. And, we had 2 weeks to pivot all our classrooms to screen learning. And between, teaching 3-hour a week classes and conferences and meetings, like the last thing I wanted to do was sit down to relax with my computer screen.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I chose not to expose myself to a lot of digital theater as a response to the pandemic. Okay. I think, for my own personal opinion, theater in the digital age, you talked about self-advocacy, and I think that is such a beautiful way to think about it, because what it does is it preserves you, the participant, whether it's as an artist or a creator or as a watcher. It preserves you, and it preserves what you're bringing to this camera or this screen. And that self-advocacy is also self-preservation, which I think, particularly during the whole pandemic, and that's super important. I would argue that I feel like theater in the digital age is also an opportunity for general advocacy, right? Like,
Yeah,
I can create something again, I was talking about this earlier about Strawdog Theater Company, that for many years we were up a perilous flight of 32 steps that were, it was difficult to get up to. And, we had people tell us, in press and media, like, this is a great show, but I can't recommend it. Well, why not? Because people can't get up the staircase to see it.
I saw a 92-year-old Mike Nussbaum climb those stairs.
Yeah, Mike came up a couple times. Mike's a trooper. But the point is that you can create things that are accessible to other people, that are accessible in ways that that perhaps physical theater is not. So I think somebody last week, Jess Hutchinson said, like, in a lot of ways we wasted a really good crisis. That there were some opportunities that perhaps that once we've all been like, oh, thank God we can go back to the way things were, like, there are certain things that are within this tool that I think that we have yet to figure out how to really exploit, both creatively, artistically, and then just from the point of view of getting some of the things we love about physical theater out to more people. But I will say,
go ahead. Sorry.
I have one last point, and then you can all tell me what you're thinking.
I think we're out of time, Hank. And
well, Billy, why don't you wrap us up? That I mentioned this in a previous thing. Like, I have to come to Zoom to do so much, to teach, to talk to friends, to do this, to do that, that, like, this platform does not mean transcendent experience to me.
Right.
And that could be a function of Zoom, the same way, like, I don't want to watch a movie on my phone. That's not a transcendent experience. That I want something bigger than my everyday. And my laptop screen is not bigger than my everyday. It is, in fact, the frame of my everyday.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe in the future, and this is my big thing about the pendulum swing about digital and the live experience, maybe everyone's going to be working from home so much and on this screen and on Zoom all day and on Teams and all these fucking things that eventually they're going to crave the interpersonal experience, not just experience. Oh, I'm selling an experience and look, I'm taking a selfie of myself in a selfie farm, but the actual interpersonal human thing. And what we are trying to make may become more popular, saying in the future, because as more and more people live in this kind of, hampered interpersonal experience digitally.
It's an interesting thought.
I don't want to dismiss the need for accessibility, but your 32 Stairs reminded me, my favorite book about art making and about life is a book called Flow by Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, which is impossible to spell. But his formulation is basically the more energy you put into something, the more you get out of it, right? So you can stay home and watch Tiger King, or you can actually, get your ass in a taxi and go to the opera or whatever. And he's just saying that the second experience is going to mean more to you, right? So I feel like there is something into sort of putting energy into attending something and putting energy into what you're watching that we can't quite do through the screen. And Allison, I'm sorry, you were trying to say something earlier.
Oh no, actually, and I love that point. It was interesting though, as we were exploring everything when I was at Lifeline, to Jess Hutchinson's point, and to the accessibility aspect, we then got very excited, realizing, because we would lose older audience members who couldn't get to the theater, or they were having physical issues for whatever reason. And we got really excited about, wow, how do we take this? And we thought maybe, we could do a live 3-camera experience. Actually, we're talking to Kyle about it, I think, at one point, and got really excited about it. Not doing it all the time, but having some way in which we could combine both elements, both live and also still being able to reach those people that could no longer go to the theater or for whatever reason. And then we ran into the age-old issue, and that was budget. right? There was no way to be able to do this in a way that we just couldn't do it. We just didn't have the budget, and it wasn't going to make us enough money to be able to sustain it. We couldn't find the funding, so it just kind of goes from there, and then your idea gets pared down and it gets pared down. So I appreciate just bringing up that, of like, have we missed an opportunity? How do we take this live experience and translate it to those that can't go to the live experience? But then we keep getting stuck in this broken model, this broken economic model, or broken business model that we have, and really kind of the lack of importance for the arts, within our federal model. And then it goes down. Then there's a rabbit hole that we just continue to fall down. But there definitely was some light bulbs that went off and some excitement about like, oh, wouldn't this be great to be able to show this a live experience to our audiences while it was happening.
Well, and the one theater that does that really well is the National Theater in London. Their simulcasts are fantastic, but they get gazillion dollars from the government, right?
Exactly.
Aren't they funded by the government a little bit?
That's it. I mean, that's it. I mean, and we've had some great articles coming out lately. People are advocating, are saying the government has to come in, and we'll see.
Yes, that was a good article. Yeah.
But we're not really built on that in America, so that's a whole nother topic.
I love that article by Andy Horowitz, The Theaters We Need Now. Has anyone read that?
Mm-hmm.
Be different, be communal, be about money, be more local, share power, be more adventurous, be purpose driven. All those are the top line, too long didn't read parts of that blog. This is this when the model is broken, right? There's nothing that gives us money. The best way to do it is, I think maybe if we stick to what we believe versus what we want the grantors to think we believe, I think a sense of reality and what is real and what is important might come back to us.
Yeah.
But we're gonna suffer in the meantime.
So I think the thing that's most alarming is the fact that people are out of the habit of going to the theater and concerts. And I don't know if you saw the article today, but the Guggenheim has raised their entrance fee to $30 because they're getting fewer people coming to the museum. Because
that's a great calculation. Charge more, and so more people will come.
Yeah, exactly. But this idea of people getting out of the habit, like, how do we get them back in the habit, right?
Yeah.
I think it's not a habit. I think it's just, the conspirators, we treat doing a show like being in a band, right? We're just thought that we just go out and we jam for a couple of shows in a friend's loft, and you get 40 people out there and you're surprised. And the larger model, I don't know. I don't know if the larger subscription model is going to survive. Although, speaking of theater in a digital age, digital in a different way, Tommy worked for me. And it's like at the Goodman, if you have that money to make a digital play on the stage, theater in a digital age in that sense, that was cooking. That was something that the digital sensibility and all the mise en scène was completely look like a video game or a pinball machine, if you will.
God, I wish I saw it.
Well, there's just so much content nowadays on any and every streaming app that there is, that what's going to bring people out is ideally what theater does best. It has to be uniquely situated for the theater. It has to be so compelling in a theatrical, communal sense that it's going to get you off your butt and away from Netflix or Hulu or HBO and get you to downtown theater or storefront theater. It's got to be compelling in the ways that theater is uniquely situated to be compelling, and a screen isn't going to be doing that.
That's one of my things. If I direct something, it's got to want to be a play. It can't be anything else. I don't want to direct your TV episode. I don't want to direct your novel. It's something it has to be theatrical. And I think the uniqueness, as you say, is going to be the thing that draws people back. Sorry, I'm making a new one here.
Don't skimp on the Midori.
So Billy, I also saw Tommy, and you and I have discussed this.
Yeah.
And Allison, you're like, oh, I wish I'd seen it. You can't see it. It's sold out.
I
Well,
know.
you can show up in the next 4 days and maybe you'll get in.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, people are not necessarily out of the habit, right? That's how big is that house? 800?
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's selling out 8 times a week.
Mhm.
And it's also selling out a show. Billy, I don't know about you. I wouldn't want to have watched the video of that,
Right.
You want to watch the video of that?
of Tommy. I wouldn't want to sit home and watch a digital version of that.
I mean, it was very presentational and very theatrical.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree with that.
And my neighbors went, and then when they had family in town, they bought eight tickets. They found 8 tickets and brought their family to go. So it was one of those, as they were talking about it, their excitement,
Well-
they just couldn't stop. And I was so happy. I was so happy.
It's like when the producers was in town before it went to Broadway. It's kind of the pre-Broadway buzz, like, ooh, it's Chris Jones just you know what he does, liked it, so to speak, and that really just created the buzz. Once the Tribune likes it, you're in.
I don't know, right? Like,
Different opinion about that show, which I'm happy to tell you about at
Yes,
this
please.
point,
Oh, no.
Allison.
I did not enjoy my Tommy experience.
And
I enjoyed.
however, I will say that the original, directed by the same director, changed my world.
Oh, wow. Wow.
So
Wow.
that's a fascinating conversation.
Yeah.
For time.
And where did it begin, Kara?
Wow.
The Broadway production
Oh, okay, I see.
in
Okay.
the mid 90s. Yeah.
But it was the same director.
Same
Wow.
director.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
And
I
the
love
movies changed too,
The
wasn't it?
lead performer is fantastic,
Okay.
but everything else, I had a really uniquely strong reaction
Wow.
again.
Wow. Love that.
Oh, yeah, we'll talk offline about that. I'm fascinated.
But I love that it's selling out, and I want for every theater to sell out shows the way that they're selling that show out.
yeah, it caught
Hey,
fire.
I just did a show at the Little Factory Theater up in Rogers Park, and the second half of the run was selling out, and
Oh,
it
thank
was
God.
50
That's a good
seats,
sign.
but Rogers Park on Howard,
Great.
and it was
Good Tribune review. I'm just
well,
saying.
that was it, and that the Tribune review came mid-run,
Right.
and that's when it started hitting. But people were still going up there, and that neighborhood has become a little dicey, and so it was very heartening from a producer's lens. It was great as an actor, yay! But as a producer, that was thrilling to see that was happening, and to know that can still happen.
Man. So yeah, right? Like that's the thing. Is the calculus that the audience has to make different now? Right? Like
Mhm.
what I because people are going to see things are selling out, people are going to sporting events, people are going to concerts, people are going to immersive theater. I say that, I don't mean to say it like that, I said it like that, immersive, sorry. But right, like, so like, Billy, you had your hand up.
Here's the thing. It's like when Cromwell took over England and
Yeah.
Just like that.
made theater illegal. And then when they came back after they killed Cromwell, they forgot how to do it. It's like, I don't know, I'm going to write this thing and there's going to be beheadings. And I know I've heard of Shakespeare, but I'm not quite sure what it looks like. So I think we've had a time to kind of like have the opportunity to reinvent what it is and decide what it is. And I don't think a lot of people are, like you said, the habit's gone. So I think we have the opportunity to like draw folks in with a new idea, or what our idea is now. But I think we've forgotten the model. The model, I think, is fading away, and part of that is also the kind of Caucasia-centricness of regional theater has also gone by the wayside. And so there's this kind of like, okay, what is it now? And we have this opportunity to decide what it is and present what it is and see if we can't engage with folks in a new thing, like after the Reformation.
Well, after Cromwell died, it was Restoration Comedy, right? So everybody
Right.
needed to laugh.
Right. And you had to wear red heels. But yeah, Restoration Comedy, but also like really kind of violent stuff.
Yeah.
You know, Duchess of Malfi and shit.
Wow, I have like 500 other things I would love to hear all of you talk about, but I know that it's particularly late in some time zones for some people, and we are getting near the end of our hour. Man, yeah. So I'm gonna say some thank yous to everybody for a few minutes, and while I do that, you all think about, I guess I think I said in an email, I'd love to hear a book recommendation, a play recommendation, like something to read, something for the folks to latch onto. Um, but let me go through some business here. Thank you. We're wrapping up. So thank you. Five thank yous. Thank you, number one, to our amazing panelists for their time and their thoughts and their insights and their dedication to this art form. Thank you, number two, to Kyle Hammond for creating and producing this show. Thank you, number three, to officehours.global, Edwin Ruiz, and Mondo Machine for helping to make this all possible. Thank you, number four. The show is made possible by Strawdog Theater Company and its ensemble members. So thank you, ensemble members. But Strawdog Theater Company is run on a free theater model where our productions are available to anyone and everyone free of charge. So we can only do this with generous donations from our communities. So you can find out more information about donating or becoming a Strawdog sustaining subscriber to continuously support our work at strawdog.org. And the final thank you, the fifth thank you, is to the folks who tune in and who are viewing or viewing on delay or participating in the chat room and supporting the show with those donations and sustaining subscriptions. Thank you so much for helping us keep the conversation going. Let's hear a book recommendation. Billy, you got one?
I have two. One is Die Stücke von Bertolt Brecht in einem Band, the original German of all the complete works of Bertolt Brecht. But
That's accessible.
Yeah, what a show off.
it was a coaster. That was my drink was sitting on. But in our discussion of sacred theater, please, if you've read it, reread it. And if you haven't read it, I'll respect you when you read it. The Empty Space.
Yeah.
This we talk about sacred theater. This is kind of where I get that idea. And deadly theater is the things we don't want to make. So The Empty Space, Peter Brook, check it out.
Brilliant. Lovely. Allison.
I'm going to go with a little historical fiction, a book called Booth by Karen Joy Fowler. Lisa Dillman recommended it on Facebook. I'm kind of I steal people's recommendations, and it was great to read on a lot of different levels and different perspectives.
Love it.
Lisa Dillman fan.
Yeah.
Yeah. Kira.
I'm going to recommend a book called We Play Ourselves by Jen Silverman, who is a fantastic writer. If you don't know their work, you should know their work. They've written plays such as The Roommate, which Steppenwolf did several years ago, Collective Rage, a play called The Moors, which Red Orchid did to much success last season, that I had the chance to direct in Wisconsin last summer. We Play Ourselves by Jen Silverman. It's a contemporary drama with a little bit of a thriller in there. It centers on a playwright who is on the precipice of major success in New York and then responds pretty aggressively to a negative piece of criticism, moves to LA to build her life.
I just realized I read it. Yes.
It's a fantastic, it's part contemporary fiction. It's also has a lot to say about art and the nature of ambition and the ever-changing nature of success and how we define ourselves, and is just a fantastic book. I can't recommend it more highly, especially to artists.
All right, Wendy.
The theater book I've read recently that I really liked was Richard Gilman's book about Chekhov, which is called An Opening into Eternity. And then I've been reading 2 novels by Rebecca Mackay. The older one is called The Great Believers, which is actually set in Chicago. And it's 2 storylines, but actually the 1980s storyline about the AIDS epidemic is completely moving. And then her new book, I Have Some Questions to Ask You, is such a page turner and really good.
She also has a great blog if you want to follow her blog.
I didn't know that. Okay, great.
You can access it through her website.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yay.
I love it. I'm just gonna I'll re-endorse Wendy's earlier suggestion of flow. And I could reach up to my other bookshelf and pull off Billy's, and absolutely. So thank you all so much for joining. We'll stick around here ourselves for a little bit, but the show will be over. And we'll say some private goodbyes, right? Like in the green room. Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you next week for more Thank You 5, and take care. Thanks for being here.
Good night,
Yay.
everybody.
Night.